It's going to be a 2-hour debate. They're going to get through 2 topics.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. It's like the only thing we got. Okay.
Who do you got? What's the over under? Like if you're betting on FanDuel,
Who do I think is going to look better in the debate? Oh, dude, I have no clue. It's just entirely dependent on what kind of cocktail Joe Biden is on.
You're the expert opinion. No, I want to hear some.
If Joe Biden is on a good cocktail and it hits, and he's got like the State of the Union style situation, even though during the State of the Union, when he was like in a contentious conversation with Marjorie Taylor Greene, he ended up calling undocumented migrants illegals. I do feel like Donald Trump is going to look better in comparison. I think Donald Trump's going to look better in comparison to Joe Biden because Joe Biden can't handle like a heated conversation, I think. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
Biden got to do? What does Biden got to do beyond like, pop a cocktail, all the pills, shoot him up? I mean, besides that, what is he?
He needs to be able to show like Biden has a lower bar to clear in general. He needs to be able to show the country that he is like alive and that he can.
Is all he has to do is be able to speak.
Well,
and we're in the clear.
On top of that, he also needs to be able to speak to like some of his policy accomplishments clearly, without interruption. And
what do you think he needs to hammer home in? Like,
he needs to talk about some of the things that this administration has accomplished. Beyond that, I think
what's your top 3 things he's got to?
I mean, he'll talk about the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act. He'll talk about like the amount of infrastructure funding, the fact that like American industry's back, baby, that kind of thing. He'll talk about bargaining pharmaceutical prices, insulin prices. He'll talk about probably not gun control as much, even though he could technically say that, even though that's silly as. But what he hasn't
had as many mass murders lately, I think, for him to be able to do that. It's only been like a couple weeks, maybe a month before. Usually we have them like bi-weekly. You're able to fit
it's summer.
That easier.
It's summer, school's out.
Yeah, but when it's summer out, there's more shooting.
Yeah, but the media cares more about school shootings because those are like way more. Summer is usually when there's more shootings, but there's less school shootings, so you don't see a lot of coverage of the shootings in general because school shootings are like worse. Here's the thing. He has to talk about abortion. He has to fucking hammer home Roe v. Wade, be like, that's your thing. That's your administration's thing over and over again. And I don't know. I mean, I hope he'll be able to just keep the conversation on that. I fear that he's going to talk too much about January 6th. And I don't think that the American population gives a shit about January 6th as much. I think that like MSNBC and CNN try to make January 6th a big thing that Americans do care about, but it's not necessarily January 6th that Americans are upset about when they say, oh, we want to preserve democracy and we think Trump is going to be he's going to destroy democracy or whatever. When they're talking about that, they're not talking about January 6th. They're talking about like Trump saying he's going to be a dictator day one, or undermining the election results and things of that nature, even though that technically could extend to January 6th. People don't care about January 6th as like a 9/11 style event in the way that it is presented in the news, in my opinion. So
could he just then, instead of doing any of that, just say how much worse Trump is for 2 hours? Seems like almost a better strategy than whatever he's done, is just say, well, I haven't really done shit, but Trump here is going to be worse.
Well, that's the classic Democrat bargain, is like always complaining about the Republicans. No, he's been president for 4 years and people are feeling it. You know what I mean? That was the Hillary Clinton move and it didn't work. So I think that as long as he can last for 2 hours, as long as he can like talk about abortion a lot, and as long as he doesn't have like major flubs, like if his brain short circuits, it's so over. Like Trump already is like looking pretty solid in the polling. If his brain short circuits, oh my God, it's like his biggest weakness beyond inflation. That and inflation are really, really bad. There's only one area where the Biden administration and the Biden team looks better than Trump, and that's abortion. Inflation, the economy, people think Trump is better. Constant war, people think Trump is a peaceful dove for some weird reason. Well, not a weird reason. It's because Ukraine happened under Joe Biden's watch. Obviously, October 7 happened under Joe Biden's watch. So people attribute that to Joe Biden. Beyond that, on immigration, Joe Biden looks horrible on immigration. His capitulation to right-wing framing on the issue is also a massive problem for the Democrats, both on the policy front and also on bad politics. Crime is another one that like he polls worse than Trump on, but it doesn't really matter better because like murder rates are down, crime rates are down across the board. That has been consistent. The crime hysteria overall is just like subsided. But
does he have advantage on Palestine? And try not to look at it through the complete leftist lens, which I don't actually believe is truly going to matter. But I did want to ask you that after, actually.
Do I think he has an advantage on Palestine? No, he has a massive disadvantage on it. The broad majority of Americans, you want to hear something crazy? More like a big chunk of Americans, like there's like a double-digit lead on Americans that think Trump is better on Palestine than Joe Biden. Your silence speaks volumes.
Do you think that is a combination of conservatives and leftists?
No.
It doesn't seem like most liberals care.
Yes and no. I think it's because the overwhelming majority of Americans see what Israel is doing as like pretty up to varying degrees, unless they're like insane like Christian Zionists in the South or whatever who just want like, you know, Armageddon to happen. And there are some people, ultimately the most important part of this conversation is that it's happening when Biden is president, and people love to imagine that someone else would do a better job. So that's the number one issue here. And the second issue,
do you think the criticism on him from the left has been too much?
Not necessarily. That's not the only reason. It's because he is like truly up running this like narrative that he is very critical of Netanyahu behind closed doors, while simultaneously he's just giving everything. He's trying to play both sides, and he's losing because he wants to come across like he's tough on Netanyahu, but actually everyone can see that Netanyahu is getting everything he wants, and the Americans do want a ceasefire. That's why a lot of people were excited at the prospect of a ceasefire when he unveiled it, and yet in the most Brandon way possible, he put the red line out there in Rafah. Benjamin Netanyahu shat all over the red line. He didn't do anything. That made him look super weak again. And when he looks weak on foreign policy, when he looks like he can't rein in Israel, that is a reminder to the Americans of Biden's biggest weakness. He's old, he's frail, he's falling asleep on the wheel. That is the key issue here. So a lot of people personally think, either because they think like, you know, Trump isn't president and he would do a better job if he was president, and the current president is not doing a good job, or because they think Trump would somehow be better on Israel or be more aggressively against Israel's most violent tendencies, which is obviously objectively untrue, but people still believe it regardless, or that they think that he would be harder on Hamas, and therefore there's just more people that think Trump would do a better job than Biden on Palestine, even though they are in almost complete agreement on this issue.
I've seen so many leftists, a lot of them have every right to not want to support Biden in the general. Do you feel like that is actually going to have any impact? Like, are leftists who don't vote going to have actual real impact in swing states? And where are you right now? Like, it doesn't matter in California, obviously, but are you right now, are you gonna vote for Biden?
I mean, I'm definitely gonna vote, but I'm not gonna vote for Biden. No, I mean, I'm not gonna vote for Trump either. And if anyone asks me like, if anyone comes to me and says like, oh, are you gonna vote for Trump, or I'm gonna vote for Trump, I would tell them not to do that because it's ridiculous.
Would you tell leftists not to vote for Biden in a swing state?
I would tell leftists to and I have been telling leftists to do whatever the they want to do, because I don't think
for sure. Yes, everyone should do whatever the they do. I totally get
like
that.
I'm not gonna sit here and act like Biden is gonna be
like a smart strategy. I can understand it in terms of having moral value and doing what you believe in. Okay, I fully am aware that you can vote on those aspects, right? And I think to do that and to not vote for Biden is the right thing to do for a lot of people.
Yeah. So you asked me the first question. Let me answer the first question, because you said like, do you think it's going to have an impact? Yes, because something that happened in the primary season that didn't get a lot of coverage from mainstream media, unsurprisingly, was the uncommitted campaign. Now, these are people who are Democratic Party voters. They're voting in the primaries, which is like, this is the base of support, right, for the Democratic Party. Those guys went out and said, we're just going to vote uncommitted, which was a protest vote, right, in the primaries, to show the Democratic Party that like, you're going to lose these swing states if you don't actually change course on Palestine. And that was a massive amount of voters. Those were in almost every single swing state. The number of voters that voted uncommitted in the primaries, in the Democratic Party primaries, was larger than the electoral victory that Biden had over Trump in 2020. That is a massive problem, especially because the actual uncommitted voters don't vote. You see what I'm saying? The people that are like, I'm checked out. Biden doesn't move the needle for me. It's not going to work. I'm just not going to go out and vote. They're not even voting in the primaries. The people that are voting in the primaries, on the other hand, are still holding on to the hope that they can change course for the Biden administration. So
do you feel like that has worked at all so far?
In terms of changing Biden's strategy, absolutely not. Yeah. I think that Biden has basically closed off his circle, according to Axios reporting, according to reporting on the matter. He's basically closed off his circle to like any kind of naysayers. His staffers report confidentially that they're afraid of even challenging him on anything, and that he's basically delusional and super committed to the idea that like January 6th and Roe v. Wade will carry him across the finish line. Now, here's another problem. The Democratic Party is actually performing spectacularly. The Democratic Party in many states, including Nevada, including Arizona, have senators that are running. Senators are outperforming Biden at the top of the ticket by sometimes 10%. 10 points, sometimes larger than 10 points. That is insane. In states where Donald Trump is winning the top of the ticket, you have Democratic senators actually winning their Senate races. And that, in my opinion, is massively, massively troublesome. If you care about the future of the Democratic Party, then you have to see that. And this has basically been the writing on the wall for quite some time. So that paired up with the uncommitted voting campaign, it is definitely looking really bad for Biden when it shouldn't look bad for Biden at all. This should not be a close race. Now, it's all going to come down to all of these holdouts. Are they going to basically say, when push comes to shove, when the door is closing, when they finally have to reckon with the reality that it's either Biden or Trump, will they go for Biden and just hold their breath, hold their nose, and just end up voting for Biden? Will the down ballot?
Do you see that happening? Like as we get closer,
do I see that happening? It's entirely dependent on what the economy looks like.
So it has nothing to do if Biden actually changes course on Palestine.
Palestine is
not as we get closer.
No. Yeah, Palestine is not the number one issue. The number one issue is the economy, cost of living. That's the number one issue. Palestine is definitely far from the number one issue. However, right now for Biden, he needs all of the support he can get, because this race shouldn't even be close in favor of Biden, and yet it isn't even close. It's actually Donald Trump winning in many of the polls. They keep looking at like, oh, well, Biden's gaining momentum. He's picking up the pace. He's getting closer and closer to Donald Trump. Historically, with his level of approval rating this far out from the election, like there's never really been an electoral success for an incumbent candidate. Like an incumbent president has never won re-election with like 30% approval rating. So we'll see. Trump didn't win his re-election, and his approval rating was pretty shitty. So overall,
America hates everybody.
America hates everybody 100%. I mean, I hate everyone. Most people hate both of the candidates. They think they're too old, they think they're too chaotic, or they personally think, again, they're too old, falling asleep on the wheel, and that like they have not seen immediate material improvements in their lives in the past 4 years. Because one thing to again consider is that there was negative real wage growth for almost 2 years under the first 4 years of the Brandon regime. That is not something that people are going to forget. That's not something that people will take lightly. That is not something that people will forget. That is absolutely on the minds of every single voter. Like they remember that, and the economy is not like turning around quick enough either. So
okay, chat. So all we've learned is that both candidates are generally useless. There is no belief in either of them will do anything, and all of the collective efforts from all of leftists for the last 6 months has had generally no impact either way on Palestine. Things are hopeless as we go forward. Thank you, Hasan. I felt feeling really good.
Things are hopeless. I don't think things are hopeless. But I do. I mean, if we're being realistic, like, yeah, things that you mentioned beyond saying things are hopeless is objectively correct. Another massive issue for Biden is that he adopted the exact same positions that Trump was running on in 2020. So his first 100 days in office, he claimed he was going to literally roll back everything that Donald Trump had done in terms of immigration. Instead of doing that, he literally just continued Donald Trump's policies, and now has adopted Donald Trump's policies on immigration. And beyond adopting Donald Trump's policies on immigration, the gambit from the Democratic Party on immigration is actually hurting the Democratic Party's prospects in places like New Mexico, in places like Arizona, and in places like Nevada. These are states that the Democratic Party absolutely has to win. When you look at the actual calculation, the Democrats are almost always, now that Florida is seen as like a red stronghold, the starting position of the Democratic Party in comparison to the Republican Party is a losing battle. Like the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, when you look at like absolute locks in terms of states, given that the blue wall in the Midwest has been absolutely gutted, the Republican Party already starts out with more electoral college votes than the Democratic Party. So all that remains are these states, and the problem is youth vote is what is going to be what carries the Democratic Party to any kind of victory in these states, whether it be Pennsylvania. Well, Pennsylvania is a little bit different of a dynamic, but like Arizona, Nevada, and New Mexico, these are going to be states with a lot of Hispanic voters. These are going to be states with a lot of young Hispanic voters specifically. So his attitude towards young voters and trying to captivate young voters, his attitude towards immigration is so off-putting for people that they will absolutely not vote, because voting in this country for the most part is still a mission. There's hurdles to voting. It's not as easy as people make it seem it is, and that's by design. So you have to offer them something, and that something can't always be harm reduction. That something can't always be harm reduction, especially when you're showing them that like you're not even doing harm reduction anymore when it comes to issues that they might care about, like immigration. You're now doing the harm yourself 4 years after the fact.